Hello, folks. Hi, this is Mike Messier, and this is the second edition of this podcast, Cures Racism. My guest on this episode is a really good friend of mine for many years, Crosby Tatum. He's a film director, writer, producer, and actor. We first worked together going way back to a piece called Surprise, Surprise, that Crosby was the main focus of. I think Crosby wrote, directed, and starred in that piece and produced. And you had some good people like Jay Holland helping, but a lot of it was you. And I was in the movie in a supporting role as the bully or the jerk, which I enjoy doing.
Mhm.
But now we're here to talk about the new piece, the documentary series, Why Not? And if people want to look into your background, they can look up to name it the Triceptus Studios. Can you spell the website real quick?
Yeah, sure, Michael. I can definitely spell the website. It's Triceptus Studios. It is triceptus.com. That's where you can find us. You can find basically all the projects that we've been a part that we've done, and also our client work that we've done with Triceptus Studios so far, man. And like I said, I'm blessed. I'm honored to be on your podcast, man. It's great that we get to chop it up again because what people don't know about Surprise Surprise. You were supposed to only stay for 1 day, but we liked you enough that you stayed for two.
Well, I appreciate that, man, and it was a fun thing. I got to meet our so you and Jay and the wonderful actress who was in that piece.
Yep,
One of the
JD.
wonderful actors, JD and JD Akil, I think, if I'm saying her name right,
A shield. It's a shield.
Ashil, but
Yeah,
and
gotta get the
also
accent.
Ashil, yes, but and our buddy there from Hollywood East Actors Group, our good friend there, and so I want to get into this piece, man. Why not? Because that's the
Why
focus.
now? Actually,
Why
it's
now?
pronounced
I'm
why.
sorry. Why
Yeah.
now? But you know what? It's also a why not too. But it's why actually to me, buddy. It's a why. Why has this? Why are these problems going on for so long when people know better, and our country should have known better from the get go? But unfortunately, for whatever reason, we didn't, and things have escalated, and things have remained stubborn with racism and segregation as far as thoughts of people segregated in their mind. It's kind of disgusting to be honest with you. But I want you to take the mic from here and tell us about your project, bro.
No, definitely, Mike. I appreciate sincerely, and honestly, now considering as why not? I mean, heck, maybe we'll consider calling it why not? Because basically, it's a call of action for a lot of what's going on with society today. Um, I literally can go back. We first and foremost, 2020 has just been a train wreck. Let's just be honest with you. We're just waiting for it to get out the tracks and do all the crazy stuff that you'll see in the movie. But um, for me, the project started with George Floyd, and when on on May 26th, I woke up and I saw the video of George Floyd with the police officer Derek Chauvin, his knee on his neck. And when we talk about the essence of police brutality and with the fact that there is a deep rooted trauma for African Americans and police and white males, and the fact that there is the first white president in the Oval Office named Donald J. Trump, who is one of the most visceral and angrily racist presidents you'll ever find in society today. That is emboldened, and people are not afraid to be that person. The fact that you see somebody's knee on a black man's neck and he's dying before your eyes, and there's nothing no one can do because it is being protected by the police officers that were around using their badge as this cover for their action. I mean, I'll be honest, it pissed me off to no end. I was so angry, I was frustrated, I was hurt as a black man. I thought to myself, any minute somebody could put a knee on my neck. And literally speaking, these thoughts of like when I had a gun pulled on me by a police officer for a toy gun, mind you, that I had when I was doing one of my set pieces. What people don't know is that in 2009, and this is pretty much right after Oscar Grant in Oakland, in that same year, or we were approaching Oscar Grant. Um, there was a situation when North Attleboro police, where I was with my girlfriend and we were hanging out, we are playing around in a warehouse facility area in North Attleboro, and what happened was somebody called the cops on us, and police officers drew their guns at me because they thought I had a weapon and they thought I was going to rob the place. It wasn't recorded. It wasn't, tallied. I was let go. I was put in handcuffs. I thought I was going to get processed and arrested, and that's not what happened to me. So that fear, that experience of being arrested and having a gun pulled on me by a police officer, it was really just a visceral feeling. So when we see the names of those who have died, like an Oscar Grant, a Sean Bell, a DJ Henry, Tamir Rice. I mean, the heck, like what I could have been Tamir Rice before Tamir Rice happened. You know.
I want to jump in, Crosby, because here's something that's interesting, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we're about the same age, and we're from the same area of New England in many ways. Then the thing is that I'm just kind of self-reflecting as you're speaking, as you're naming these victims of brutality and death and violence. I don't know all the names that you're mentioning. And I think that's not just a reflection of me, but on a lot of white Americans who, even if we care, even if we follow these stories, which I do, the fact that you remember the names so clearly and I don't is a reflection that it goes to the next level with you because it's more personal to you. With me, I feel bad, I feel empathy, I feel sympathy, I feel outraged, I'm disgusted. I'm here doing the podcast with you, but because it's not people, of my same skin color, I don't feel the same threat. And unfortunately, I just had that moment of reflection as you're naming all these names. I don't know. I know some of them, but not all of them. And some of the cases I know pretty well, and some of them I don't know very well at all. So it's just another thing, folks, where you don't have to be an outward KKK racist person to benefit from what they call, white privilege. You know what I mean? Because I'm benefiting from the fact that I don't even have to have these names memorized because it doesn't affect me as much as it does you. You see what I'm saying?
No, I completely agree. One thing that in research and doing why now, or as you like to say, why not, is the fact that because of the fact that African American males or those who are predominantly Latino, Latinx, who predominantly show themselves as black in some circles, or Afro-Latino, Afro-Cuban, Afro this, that, and the third. There's a communal experience when you grow up in an African American setting or environment, because there's a close knitness because of the fact is we are ostracized by our skin color, and also because we are well, the word I'm trying to find is that it's pretty much like, hey, we're all for one for all. If we hurt, it is a very visceral experience. Like if you hurt one of us, we're all gonna hurt, and then basically if you punch one of us, we're gonna feel that punch, and now we want to fight back. There is just this, this togetherness that Black, African American, a lot of communities have. Not sure for white people it is the same thing, but it's just that there's so many those who are white that there's that feeling, and that's why I draw to that experience. Because also one thing that I draw to that is because of the fact is an African American, I mean the research is there that basically the rate that an African American is going to be pulled over or ascertained by a police officer, it's around 4 to 5%, but because there's not that many African Americans skewed from white people, that percentage is higher than what you'll say for a regular person.
Well, not to say a regular person, but a non-black
But
person,
just
I guess. Yeah.
yeah.
For me, man, I kind of grew up, and this is not about me, but just this one point. I didn't really grow up with any type of white pride or pride in even my, ethnicity of French. It was just kind of, I was there. I just, you know what I mean? I didn't have a strong family ethnic, although I do have friends that are, say, Italian, especially in the Northeast of
Mhm.
New England. And then I can
Right.
tell you that there's a difference, say, between an Italian family and an Irish family or an Asian family.
Right.
Friends of mine,
There
I
were
can, yeah. So there's cultural differences. For me personally, I kind of grew up in a vague sense, like there wasn't really a strong sense of ethnicity or community. We were just kind of suburbanites in the suburbs, and but I get what you mean, man. And so what I want to ask you is, you've been hit. What I'm really proud of you, man, is you've been hitting the streets with these protests, these rallies. And so for all the people, whether they're on my Facebook thread or social media or however they find this on YouTube, people that think they know what these protests are all about, what I've been trying to say, just by my own common sense, is that there's a difference between a protester and a rioter, and there's a difference between a protest and a riot. And a lot of times, some of these protests that become riots are because of outside influences sabotaging them. And maybe you can kind of expand on those thoughts, agree with me or disagree, or expand on anything about your personal experience of actually being there, not just being a social media armchair quarterback like the rest of us.
No, no, I completely agree with you on that, Mike. I completely emphatically agree with you. So there's two ways how you can look at the fact that when it comes with protesting and rioting, basically, Dr. Martin Luther King says that basically a riot is basically the voice of the unheard, which is usually basically people. We tried it one way, we tried another. This is now we're gonna do this to get your attention. So I want to just really backtrack to really May 27th. We're talking 24, 36 hours away after George Floyd got murdered. His video was shared among the people, and people were feeling upset and everything about that. So what happened in that time frame, the district attorney's office in Minnesota didn't initially place charges on the officers. And when that when they initially didn't do the charging for those officers, right then and there, I felt like this dam was about to break. Like something is going to happen to Minnesota, and you know what? Because people have been cooped up, because we've been in quarantine, this is going to spread like a domino effect. And what happened is you see this visceral rage and this visceral pain that people are feeling, and now it is being taken out. It's going to the streets. Protesters were in the streets. There were people, saboteurs, that were trying to basically pin it on black people to basically fulfill whatever agenda that they were going with. They were really trying to do their best, and there were protesters out there in the streets trying to say, "Don't do that." So, um, you know, first and foremost, I have no problem with a person going out there and just saying, Black Lives Matter, or, saying this, that, and the third. You know what I'm saying? That's that we are Americans. That is our job, number one. The right to exercise our democracy, our freedom. That's who we are. And for me, I felt a certain pride about that, not just as not just as a person, as an American, but as a black person, as an Afro Latino person. My parents were born in Honduras. I'm actually Central American. So for me, it was really just a sense of pride, just going out, just for people to go out there. And even if I didn't have a camera to film those events, I still was going to go out there and just, you know, experience what this thing was. But I felt as the days went by and we saw all the rioting, we saw all the protesting, and people, there were, there was agendas that were happening. They were trying to hijack the movement for the most part, or people were just trying to fulfill whatever it is that they wanted to do. I just said, you know what? There's a story here, and as much as I want to make a narrative, I want to challenge myself a little bit here. I want to go out and I want to find the story. What is this thing? Why is this happening? Why now? Why not? You know what I'm saying? because that was the question I had. Why is this happening now? Why are these moments happening? And then you see these interviews on mainstream media where they were like, we got to fight. We got to go out here. And I remember one of my friends posting a comment when I shared the George Floyd video. He said, until we start shooting back with bullets, things are not going to change. And I'm like, this is really about to get real. But I wouldn't say to the point where people will do that, because I like to think people have more common sense than that.
Well, here's the thing. No matter how many citizens arm themselves and feel the need to go after people in authority, the authority is always going to have more guns and weapons. And
Exactly.
the reality is, man, it shouldn't come to that point. And it's unfortunate, not just unfortunate, it's horrific that people that even, because I'm sure I don't know your friend whoever commented, but they got there because of a reason, feeling threatened. And I think what's sad for me is to think that friends like yourself, other friends I have, people of color, and even family members of color in my family, are not feeling that they can leave the home without feeling that they've got to mind their P's and Q's, and
Mm-hmm.
meaning that Mike drives 5 miles over the speed limit, Mike doesn't give a shit. If Crosby does, you're going to get all tense and nervous if you see a police car coming behind you. And if I see a police car coming behind me, I'm going 5 miles over the speed limit. I put my foot on the brake, but I'm not going to feel uptight or stressed or tense. And I'm imagining, I could be wrong, that you would feel a little differently just going 5 miles over the limit. So it's an unjust situation for people of color, to feel that if they leave the house, they have to be good, like that. They can't just be having a nice day and doing their thing. And if they happen to drop a cup on the sidewalk, if they don't pick it up, they're not going to get arrested and detained for something frivolous. And I feel that what some folks are missing, Crosby, in my opinion, is the feeling that just to leave the house and go out and do your daily business. It's unfair in that, why should some people feel free and loose to have a great life, and other folks feel like they've got to be good little boys and girls and good little citizens all the time for fear of the police, as you said, putting a knee on their neck? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I can certainly attest to the fear of. I can attest to the fear of going out and just basically acting, good, acting like proper, because you know I'm not afforded those liberties as a person of color. I'm not afforded the liberty of a break, like say going 5 miles an hour over a speed limit. Every time I even go about that and I get pulled over by a cop, I'm thinking to myself, is this it? Is this the end of the road? Am I about to die right now because somebody, is going to get overly aggressive because I am of a menace to that person, because of who I am, how I look, how I feel about things, or how loud my voice can be, or the fact that I might have a more muscular, denser look, and they're intimidated by it. And it shouldn't have to be that way. It really shouldn't.
Of
And
all, go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
and yeah, and I just want to just really just point out the fact that systemic racism is a major problem here in America, and that's why the actions of people getting out and protesting and marching and just saying we need to change these laws now, because if we don't, we're really looking at, like, you know what I'm saying? We're just looking at something that it could be of a humanitarian crisis, in my view, because that people are not treating everyone equally in a country that is supposed to be this beacon of equality and democracy, where in fact it is controlled in an authoritarian state where people basically fear the ground that they walk on, and it shouldn't have to be that way.
There's so much there, man. You go back to that quote. I'm going to mishandle the quote, but it's something about like World War II. They came for the Jews, and I did nothing because I was not Jewish. They came for the homosexuals, and I did nothing because I was not homosexual. They came for the Polish, and I did nothing because I was not because I was not Polish. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to defend me. Something to that. I'm sure I just slaughtered the quote, but it's a famous quote,
Yeah.
which basically means if you don't defend other people, whether they're Jewish, homosexual, Polish, and now in 2020 America, and going back for quite some time in America, United States of America anyway, if you don't defend your
Mhm.
black brothers and sisters, who the hell is going to defend you? Because you
R-
never know who's going to be the next group to be targeted for whatever reason.
No, you don't know. You certainly don't know. And honestly speaking, like I said, it could be anyone really. And I think that's really where we talk about the Black Lives Matter movement, and when we talk about this awareness of the fact that saying we are dealing with over 400 years of slavery and its effects on America that is still felt today, where like say like Mississippi, I believe there was like a law that I read somewhere where basically Mississippi was basically still trying to outlaw slavery in some form or fashion in 2013, saying it is it is basically is not supposed to happen or something like that. There was there is this thing here where people want to uphold these old attributes, and we're trying to say this has to change, this has to stop, because people need to be aware that basically if you're going to come for this person, this part of life, who are you to say that that's going to happen to that person? Like as you said with the old World War II analogy of how Germany rose to power. And the fact is that people have been aware of this because of the fact that you know it's happening real time and people are fighting up and raising up against it.
Well, one thing there's so many things we can talk about. I mean, we talk about, the smartphone, the mobile phone with the camera has been a tool for the citizenry to kind of even the odds a little bit. Because when we go back to Los Angeles, 1991, 92, with the LA, the Rodney King beating, and the police in the Rodney King situation basically getting off for the most part, or totally. There happened to be a gentleman with a video camera inside his home who taped this stuff. Well, now pretty much everybody has one of these, right? So now,
Exactly.
if nothing else, and now that Crosby, I just saw it a week or two ago. There's apps now for your phone to automatically start on command, a voice command, start taping an interaction with the police. I mean, it's gotten to the point where the phone companies or the phone app designers are making apps to make it easier to, on voice recording, start recording your phone, because that's how in fear people are. And I think what upsets me, Crosby, is, look, this may not affect me personally. It affects my buddy, you personally, my friend Jaime Reborn, who was on the first episode of this
Hmm.
podcast, Cures Racism. But what I get upset about is some folks who maybe aren't directly touched by this. If either they don't have any black friends that they talk to or whatever, but they don't seem to get it that this is real. This is not something where that pat advice of be a good person and don't get in trouble with the law and you'll be fine. It doesn't seem to be working, because as we've talked about, a lot of these cases that you mentioned earlier, the people were minding their own business and got into a problem. There was a case in Texas where a woman was playing video games with her nephew. The police got called by the neighbors saying something was suspicious going on. The police came over, and like a sharpshooter, they shot a woman who was babysitting her nephew through the glass door of the apartment or the home. Well, wait a minute. What was whoever they thought that person was, or what they were doing? Why would they sharpshoot them without even knocking on the door? It really makes little sense, unless we say, as my first guest Jaime Reborn asserted, it's a systematic, almost trying to wipe black people out, or human trafficking into the jail system, or something that's so corrupt and horrendous that I think a lot of people don't even want to open their mind to that possibility. But here we are trying to be open to that possibility, at least in discussion.
Yeah, and we can open it up. I mean, there's so much there. I mean, we could talk about the prison industrial complex, or basically the prison industrial pipeline, where, it's basically a system set up for African American children to fail. I mean, we could talk about Ronald Reagan. That was his war on drugs, basically for everyone to kill the black people. I mean, there's so many there, and the person that was shot in her home, her name is Atiana Jefferson. Another name, unfortunately, succumbed to police brutality because of a mismanagement. I mean, it was pretty much Breonna Taylor before Breonna Taylor.
Wasn't that in
Um,
Dallas Fort Worth area? That's one I was thinking of. And in
yeah.
like October, see that I was in Texas for that in October of
Okay.
2009. I happened to be there in Texas in my buddy Jamie's movie. I was playing the Dickie Whitmore Jr. in his movie Ride It Black. It was a project you would probably enjoy. And the
Yeah.
first or second night I'm there, there's this horrible police shooting. And going to the set the next day, which I was pretty much the goofy white guy in the movie with mostly an African American cast, and it wasn't tense amongst the cast against me, but it was a feeling of, oh my God, this happened here, here where we are, and it's just never stopping, and it's very upsetting.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It really is upsetting. And unfortunately, Boston is not akin to it as well, at least in the New England area. For us here, the names that we have here, and I actually interviewed them for the mothers for those affected. We have Terrence Coleman, who was gunned down, who had a mental episode. Um, where basically the police were called and he was gunned down. So his mother, Mrs. Coleman, I like to say, who works with the Mass Action for Police Brutality, who's working, their job is working together to reopen the cases to basically, you know, have accountability for police officers. She's one of the mothers who unfortunately suffered because of that. And she speaks everywhere she goes about how Terrence he loved 50 Cent. He loved making mixtapes, and he had, like I said, he had a mental issue, and unfortunately, he was killed because of that. There's cases of that. I mean, we just have one recently, a couple of weeks ago. I forgot the gentleman's name.
He had the knife. He had the knife, and they had called and everything.
Yes,
Yeah,
Philly.
Philadelphia. Yeah.
So we have that, and as we talk about these topics, about how the cell phone is literally the greatest weapon that people could have, because now you can call racism out by just basically putting it on your phone, and instantaneous action occurs because of it. Um, you know, it's still not enough, because saying there are still laws that are protecting these people from really from some change that needs to happen, when we know that it's there, it's broad as day. And saying there has to be accountability for those people and those individuals.
And I think you're right. That's a great word, accountability, because to me, and some of the things, like for instance, when people say defund the police, well, I'm not sure what they mean, and I don't know if everybody is on the same page with what they mean by that. But I think one thing that has to be looked at is accountability, because when the police are able to do things and have no accountability, then people distrust the police, and then these good cops that we hear about. And I do believe most of the cops are good, but they are getting the bad rap for the actions of the bad cops. The other thing, kind of like the military, I would suggest that there is a don't turn on your brother, almost like the mafia. Don't turn on your fellow police officer. Don't turn on your fellow military man. There's that pressure to not be a rat or not be a turncoat between these officers, or it could be anything, like I said, any type of group like that that's so organized. And that has to kind of change a little bit if we're going to regain the public's trust. If you don't care about reclaiming the public's trust, and it's just a war between citizens and authority, then like you said, we're going to have situations where people feel like they have to take guns to the office. I don't want that. I don't think anybody wants that, but
No,
people are
no, no.
feeling. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I totally get you on that. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants to feel like that, bro. Um, we like to think, yeah, there are some good police officers out there who are, it is their job and they love it. But at the same time, why aren't those policemen? Why aren't those people? Um, why aren't they speaking up? Why aren't they calling people out? That's where the term the thin blue line is perpetrated. And for those who are outwardly racist or outwardly out there supporting Trump and what he does, people go to that line as as a certain area of defense because they feel as if they are protected, because they fear that there is this rising that people want equality. It's something that people don't want. It's something that people do not want, to happen because they are fearful. Fear is really the motivator of all these things that are happening here because people fear what they don't understand, and people are not ready to have these conversations yet because they think it's what we see on television, where in fact this is real. This is as real as it gets. And for me, going out here and hitting these protests, I really just didn't want to do something where it's just gonna be like a first night and what I'm saying, and just be like in out and this and the third. I really wanted to get to the heart and the matter of why now, why not is happening, because I was just like, I'm affected by this. And basically I need to get all this pain, this anger, this frustration. I need to get this out somehow. And the only way I know how is just to be there in that moment, capturing these amazing images and these people who are rising up against these status quos. And as I seen throughout the process of this whole summer, the summer of protesting, um, it's been one of the most enthralling, engaging things that I've ever seen in my entire life, of people coming together to protest this thing. And also the other things with the people who are fighting against it as well, because there's an issue there with people like who don't want to let this go.
I have a few more questions for you if you have time, but before I get to those few more questions, I want to ask you if you can share, is there a YouTube page? Is this going to be a documentary series on YouTube? Is it going to be a feature film documentary? Is it a web series? Is it what, or maybe you haven't figured it out yet. What are your
We
thoughts as far as the distribution?
literally, the distribution side of it, I was literally looking at this thing as just a series, just something I could put on the web, just document everything. It was really supposed to be like a magazine series of the people protesting, marching, and like whatever conflicts, and just the different perspectives of people, how they protest, how are they getting this out there with their own way. I mean, we interviewed a an affluent sect in Somerville by Davis Square. People will just stand out at 6 o'clock with Black Lives Matter signs. We went to Weymouth, which was really an All Lives Matter haven, where people were just like chalking up the street with Black Lives Matter and also like defund the police um, statements on at the Weymouth Town Hall. And then we would go into like the counter protesting you know, with Black Lives Matter and then Blue Lives Matter people. It's just been like an amazing experience seeing all these protests. And then as soon as I was really working towards like the August 29th, because I was hearing rumblings about this big march on Washington like 1963, and I was like, we got to go there. I gotta get out there for that, because that's really, I felt like that's where the series was going to end. I was going to be in post. We release it by around election season. But a lot of stuff happened in between that.
Okay. So far as of right now, is there anything that people can view now, or should they just wait till you go to
Um,
your YouTube channel, or what should they do for updates as it comes
so
out?
so basically the best thing I can say is right now, if people can just subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/triceptus TRICEPTUS. You already can see the teaser trailer for why now or why not. It's now why now, but We might have to talk about that title later because we're still trying to figure it out. Because honestly, I do feel it is probably a why not type of scenario. So Mike, you might have a hand in that. And
Oh, thanks, buddy. Well, whatever I can
so
do to help.
you might have a tip of the cap for that. I will say that. But right now there's only one teaser trailer that we've released. We were ready to drop another trailer, but the election happened. So
Everything. Yeah.
there's a timing thing that comes with it. So I always believe when you do a project, you got to go with the timing of things. You just can't rush with news, it's kind of like you gotta it's at the dinner plate is basically what people want to do. They want to be first at the table for whatever meal that they want. But essentially speaking, for me, I had to really reground myself and say, like, this is a film. This is gonna be a project, a compilation of things that have happened. Who knows? I still might go back to the old format, but usually youtube.com/Triceptus is where you can find the trailer. We're probably gonna drop another trailer now that things have settled down. Probably gonna drop it very soon. This one is gonna be very powerful because we actually have some really high-profile people on this one, and it all happened because we were in Washington. We got an interview with Jacob Blake Sr., who was representing for the young man that was shot 7 times in his back by Kenosha police officers.
Oh yeah, that one was huge, right?
Oh my gosh, did you see the live stream of that?
I saw the video of the guy. Someone taped it from like the house across the street, and the guy is kind of, I guess, walking or swaggering from the passenger side to the front side. The officer follows him, grabs the back of his shirt, and shoots him 7 times in the back. And the gentleman, Blake, has got like 3 or 4 kids in the back seat who are watching their father get shot in the back. And then that was pretty brutal, man.
Oh my gosh, it was painful. It was heart-wrenching. And I spoke with him. I only asked him one question because, this is
his father.
Yeah, Jacob Blake Sr. Basically, he was again interviewed by PBS. There is a situation where we were going to march, and this will be told out throughout the documentary. Is basically we were going to march because we're there in a moment, like this is American history that we're a part of now. And I was like, I can't believe we're even here at this point. So, he's already being asked so many different questions, and I'm not a field reporter. I'm not a journalist. I'm a filmmaker. I look for the moments. I look for, the emotion. I look for, what the situation is. And when you're in that sector, when you're in that situation, you got to just get that moment as it happens. And literally speaking, I only had one question for him, and that was really, what is this going to lead to something? Is this going to matter for the future? And then because I was like, I don't know what else I could say here that hasn't already been said to Mr. Senior, to Mr. Blake Senior, because he's already going through a lot, and this is 5 days after Jacob Blake Jr. is shot, and he's fighting for his life in the hospital. So I'm like, what else can I say here that is not going to be, stupefied? And
That's right.
I grabbed a really powerful shot of his brothers raising him up as he walks away. And I was like, I have, saying this is a moment. And honestly, my prayers are still with Mr. Blake Sr. and Jr. As he continues to heal. And I hope that he gets all the reprimands that from that. And then what happened also was even crazier that day was we got an interview with Ayanna Presley on across from the steps of Washington. So, and that situation was a mentally impaired individual was challenging her on the street, and she was trying to calm the situation down. Which I was like, why am I filming this? Why is this happening?
Who I'm forgetting. Who is Ayanna Presley? Please refresh my memory.
So Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley is part of the seventh congressional district here in Massachusetts, which in Boston, and she's actually represents my hometown, Hyde Park. So she is very representative, and she is now known as a member of the squad, as they say. That's part of Congress with AOC, with Rashid Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, and now Ayanna Pressley, because they both served their terms in Congress. They basically started in Congress. They're known as the progressive front of the Democratic Party, in a sense, which it more aligns more left with Bernie Sanders, and basically working with the Green New Deal and with Medicare for all, and also just for the government to provide for all.
And Trump was at loggerheads, to say the least, without that group. And I guess I want to, if you have time, Crosby, and tell me if we get a wrap. But I got two points, and then we'll call it a night if we can. You mentioned
I am ready to wrap with that.
Cool, man. Well, President Trump, he's still the president as of this minute. He claimed, I think it was in the second and final debate with President-elect Joe Biden, Trump claimed that he was the greatest president to African Americans since Abe Lincoln. And just to jump in real quick, I know that there was a few kind of things where Kim Kardashian brought some type of case to his table of a woman that was in prison for a long time, and Trump, got her out of jail, and she was in jail for some, drug charge that was kind of, no pun intended, trumped up back in the 70s, I think. And so in some isolated cases, he did help specific African Americans. But I guess my question for you, and I'll give him credit for that, but I guess my question for you, Crosby, is, does those isolated cases, or do some of his policies that he claims are so great for African Americans? I guess I'm not the expert on that. Maybe you know more than I do. But does he have any claim to this, or is he just trumping himself up, so to speak? You tell me, because I don't know the answer.
Well, you got to ask a question of a question, really, is like, if he was so great for African American people, why did he put out a one-page ad in the New York Times asking for the death penalty for the Central Park Five, or rather the exonerated five? Why would he, and this is on his record. Now, not to say that things would change, but this is on his record of him basically not allowing African Americans fair housing practices for any of properties that he owned or whatever it was. Why, if he was a great president for Black people, why is it the fact that he would take liberty to basically segregate, working with segregationists and other people to basically quell Black progress? Now, I get it that there were plans for African Americans to basically, that he was working together, but honestly, the proof is in the pudding, because basically, if you look at the job numbers for African Americans, that slipped down tremendously before COVID. And you could just see it like in the streets as well. The fact that there are more people out there just on the streets, because of the economy. So when we talk about, I like to say that it's a lot of fluff, and honestly, it's just the fact of it's really tax talk. Because usually, what people don't understand in business is the fact that basically it's not really the earnings that you keep; it's the taxes that you don't get charged with. It's really just but at the same time, the tax laws were getting reduced anyway. So for him to make that claim, I find it laughable at best.
Well, I hear you, man. Things such as the Charlottesville, Virginia quote, the both sides infamous quote, which didn't give much reassurance to people at the time. I think that was 2 or 3 summers ago now. That
Yeah, I have fake memories. I mean, that really started my activism in a way, because I saw it when it happened live, and I was so scared. Like, the first year Trump was literally, we had, the Muslim ban, we had, tempting war with North Korea, we had nuclear weapons, and then next thing you know, the Ku Klux Klan and all the mother mothers started coming out, and then like the most powerful Vice documentary about Charlottesville. I mean, that's must watch TV right there. That's a must watch film because of the fact that those people came out. And I remember after that, I actually marched in solidarity with the people in Charlottesville because there was a counter protest. The alt right was going to split up, and they were going to do this big thing in Boston a week after that whole thing, and then everyone just came out and just said, "No, you're not going to have this in our city." I heard somebody was stuck in a tree or something like that, and it was crazy. Like, I'm not sure if you know one of my buddies, Dave McCready. I'm not sure if you know him.
I don't think I do. No.
Okay, so there's a crazy story in that where my boy, saying a group of people thought he was a Trump person because he was wearing khakis and a shirt. But what happened was I had to go out and protect him because I was like, they wanted to jump him. Like, the people on the Black Lives Matter side, they thought like he was a Trumper. And I was like, no, this is my boy. You want to come for him, you're gonna come for me, y'all. So what's up? And then next thing, we're just members of the press. So
Right.
we're like, what I'm saying? We're just chilling because it's getting crazy. And I was like, no. You know what I'm saying? If you want him, you gotta come for me. So what's up? And I was like, okay, escape route. What do we gotta do here? Who do we gotta hurt? Like, and the cops are feeling frisky. So we're like, this is not good. But cooler heads prevailed. We had some help from, I believe it was one of the Channel 5 photographers. They helped us out, and then basically we were able to get home after that, which is like, wow.
That reminds me of Tally Clemens sticking up for your buddy, me, after our filming, or during our filming of Surprise, Surprise, and the scene where I kind of get physical with, I think, I don't think it was your characters. Was it with your character? It was with your character.
I think
Yeah.
it was with me.
Yeah, it was with
When
you.
you threw me
the
out
restaurant.
at Merengues.
Yeah.
You threw me out at Merengues.
The bully.
Which yep, you were the bully. You were the bouncer bully.
And the hood did not appreciate this.
No, the hood did not appreciate it. I've heard, honestly, I was inside trying to clean up and everything like that, but I do recall there were people that were at the corner that were about to raise up, and then I heard Tali and Jay were trying to calm things down.
Well,
which I appreciate. I think Jay, but I think it was Tali mostly. I'm not sure.
Well, I said, Tali, why don't I give you a ride home so they see us together when I leave? And Tali's a great guy.
Okay, I remember that.
Give Tali a ride home.
I totally remember that.
I figured
Like,
if I'm giving Tali a ride home, they won't kill me. So that was a fun night. But man, I was down here on a lighter note, and then I'll end on the kind of the toughest question I have for you tonight. But on a lighter note, I was here in Jacksonville, Florida. I happened to turn on my television, which is some type of smart TV or whatever it is, and it had us on TV, man. It had surprise on TV, and I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I didn't put my DVD in this machine. I didn't go to the website, and here's the movie that Crosby really directed, produced, wrote, starred in, championed. And I have a very good muscle memory, and I remember sitting there with the lady, who's actually a good friend of mine too, that was in the movie as the teacher that assigns the assignment to your character.
Yeah.
And she's a filmmaker now too. She's doing great.
Yes, Allison, she's doing amazing.
Yeah, Allison's awesome. And so I'm sitting there. I can remember whenever it was 7-8 years ago, being in the room with her, and there was kind of a transition of actresses in the lead role, but you were always there, Jay, Tally, and here I am 8 or 9 years later in this Jacksonville home, watching the movie on the Maverick station, and it's the same movie that we worked on. And I, of course,
yeah, man,
the typical actor, I waited for my part to show up on the screen so I could look at myself,
There's no greater feeling when you see yourself on a medium, on a television or a theatrical screen. I mean, it's those are the moments we all work for, even if it's like for the smallest moment, or even it's for the main studio pictures or the bigger moments. The fact that you could be seen and you could be appreciated for your work, honestly speaking, it's the greatest feeling in the world. And for Maverick, all said, they really are go-getters. They really get out there. um and the fact is that basically the movie can be widely seen. I actually just seen the Maverick channel on my Sling, and honestly speaking, I'm like, wow, that's pretty dope. We could be seen at any and all times with
Yeah.
them. So I'm like, I'm humbly thankful for each and every single one of you guys for even taking a chance with us, just to even take a chance with this crazy idea that myself and Laz, Jacqueline Holland, we came up with like back in 2005. Really, it was like a century that was almost like a decade that we came up with that movie.
Well, it was like a modern day, is it Cyrano de Bergerac or the Steve Martin Roxanne movie? Kind of like a modern day
Yes.
version of that, and I was happy to be a part of it. And then, you know what I still have, buddy? I still have my lanyard with my face on it and my character name from your opening premiere, one of the events
Hey,
that,
that's all Opal Thompson, OWC, Lady O.
yeah,
You know what I'm
great lady.
saying? That's all her. So she put that together. That's what she wanted, and we was like, yeah, Opal, go and do it. Like, make it happen. And she made it happen. So,
Yeah,
you know what I'm
Opal
saying?
was
Shout out
great.
to Opal.
Here,
She's amazing.
she's definitely. You had some really great people. She was one of them, and here. Confused by Love, which I think was even, no offense to Surprise, because it was more of a comedy. But I think Confused by Love, you took it to the next level as far as storytelling. And I think your directing maybe benefited from the fact that you weren't like a principal actor in Confused by Love, because then you could concentrate on your performances. And that's a great movie, too. Is there any way that people can see Confused by Love these days, or not yet?
Yeah, no. Confused by Love. If you have Amazon Prime Video, you can watch it on Prime Video. You can watch it on. We're on Tubi TV. We're on Google Play, YouTube, Vudu. I mean, we're on all multiple video on demand platforms worldwide, except Netflix. Um, so you can see our movie basically, I would say, if you have Prime Video, just like talk to Alexa and say, Alexa, play Confused by Love by Crosby Tatum, and it shows up, and then you can watch it right then and there. Please watch it, because that movie is, we are about to be in our fourth year of being on video on demand. The point of Confused by Love, or our mission statement with that movie, was to make it quickly and to basically get it out to video on demand as quickly as possible. As much as Surprise was the launching pad for our movie, Confused by Love really took us to another level, where we've been to over 10 plus different film festivals, won 3 awards. We're flirting with the national television network with it, and I was like, if they pick this up, this changes everything. But it didn't. But maybe we
Well,
just.
well, keep trying, man. Keep trying other networks, because you never know. I mean, five, you might. It's like 99 people might pass, and the 100th one is what makes you big. Um,
Never
here's the,
mind.
and once again, I believe. Correct me if I spell this wrong. Triceptus,
.com
triceptus.com. So
studio.
all they got is
Yep.
triceptusstudios.com, or just
Tricept
triceptus. Go ahead.
Triceptus.com. We're trying to get into TS1, that's dot studio or something like that. We're trying to get to that, but right now it's just Triceptus.com. That's the name.
Trice.
I know it's. Yeah, it's like, think of Triceratops, and like think like Maxis Meridius, like like a Greek. It's like a almost like a Greek or Roman mythology type of thing, mixed in with a little prehistoric. So
Right.
think of like the Triceratops meeting Marcus Aurelius or something like that. That's Triceptus.
My toughest question for you is something that it's almost like we could do another episode on this, and not that it's your domain or anything, but one thing that I've kind of struggled with myself, and I think other people have, and maybe it's a resistance thing, is the difference between, say, the movement Black Lives Matter, the hashtag Black Lives Matter, the emotion, the narrative, versus the website or the organization. And the reason is because I think sometimes some people, it's like, if they want to say Black Lives Matter, which they do, and then to the next point is, why don't you say all lives matter? Well, the point is, not everybody's getting their knee on the neck right now. Not everybody's getting shot while they're playing video games in the apartment with their nephew. That's not happening to everybody. That's happening predominantly to African Americans. That's why we say Black Lives Matter, or that's why people say that. And that's why
Right.
that's why it's said that way, because as of this minute, they're being treated like they don't matter, meaning the African Americans. That's why you got to say Black Lives Matter. It should be all lives matter in a perfect world, but we're not living in that perfect world right now. So then the next thing is, if you go to the website of Black Lives Matter, then, and if people have done the research on some of the organizers or some of the people that own the domain, then it gets into a whole other discussion. And I think that maybe it's an excuse, maybe it's an opt-out, but I wonder if there's something to it where people don't necessarily want to put their allegiance to the Black Lives Matter movement because they don't necessarily want to subscribe to everything that the actual organization believes and stands for. Do you have any comment or thought on that?
I do, and I would say it's almost like how Dr. King, his organization was when it came to the boycott, the boycotts for busing and for everything else that happened with the civil rights movement. Whereas, like, they didn't agree, or even they were looking to undermine his movement and his progress for the civil rights of African Americans, because the fact is that he was organized, he was prepared, he was prepped. Now, the thing about the movement and the brass taxes of Black Lives Matter is the fact that it is, and I could get this wrong, because I still don't have a great understanding with it, because for me, it's really about the movement. It's how people feel. And for those Christians out there, or would-be Christians, or whatever it is, when Jesus had his lambs and he was tending to, he went back for the one lamb that's out there in the field. And I'm sure you heard this analogy before, where it is like, that lamb is just as important as the lambs that I tend to. So therefore, if the Black lives don't matter, but yet you say all lives matter, then that means you are discrediting and you are discriminating against the Black lives, because they really don't matter. And if you think that all lives matter, then basically look at how the Black people are right now. They're in pain, they're hurting, they're trying to make sense of everything. And the best thing a white or whatever person can be is an ally to that person. Because if you can sympathize and understand that person, you will find that you got a lot in common with each other that you'll find out. A Black man, like the analogy I could say is, a Black man could be a Patriots fan just as much as a white person could be a Patriots fan. And that we could talk about our favorite players. We could talk about who was the greatest player of all time, things like that. And there wouldn't be no malice. We wouldn't even have to look at her skin tone. We'd be like, that's a cool guy right there. That's a cool dude. And we need to get back to that. We need to, not even get back to it. We need to exceed that, because basically we're in this world. We're only on this planet for a short amount of time. God be willing. So that means we need to get closer and understand one another, because what you're seeing out in the streets, that work is going to continue. It's going to keep going. But the one thing that, and to put a button on this, is that we're never going to have an answer. The only thing I can attribute this is that we got to put a mask on racism, because that's, that is basically the next biggest plague that we've been fighting for a long time. We need to put a mask on racism. We need to put a mask over it. And thereby that type of pandemic will subside, and that we can grow from there. So basically, for anyone out there listening, if you are racist, the best thing to do is to call it out and then ignore it. Because basically you'll see that person's wrong. And then basically if that person keeps yelling or whatever, and you're ignoring them, that means you put your mask on. That means basically that they don't have anything else to say. So yeah, and we just got to get to that.
Well, Crosby, I appreciate you being here. Mike Messier and Crosby Tatum, we've been collaborators in the past. I'm sure we will be in the future, but this hour of discussion, I think we took it to another level. MikeMessier.com, Triceptus.com. Crosby Tatum, thank you so much. And whether it's called Why Now, Why Not, or whatever, thank you, brother.
No, thank you guys. And like I said, please watch the trailer. Why now / why not? Like I said, the trailer's up there. You can see a preview of it. There's going to be another trailer put out. It's going to be really even more powerful than what we have right now. And this, like, we're working on the series right now, and who knows what this thing's going to be. But I know for a fact it's going to be special. It's powerful. It covers everything from from May to now. And that's a we like I said, we got to do, but please look out for it. The trailer's out there, so just please subscribe.
This podcast cures racism. For Crosby Tatum and your host Mike Messier is signing off. We'll see you next time.
Spread love. See y'all later.